Well, hello, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Our next trolley stop is here, and our next trolley stop is now. And as you can tell, we're in a festive mood all the way. Welcome back to another episode of PR from the Heart's Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. To be precise, we have reached episode number 21. That is the 21st episode of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast here at PR from the Heart. My name is John Masiulionis, the manager at PR from the Heart. Each and every month we are joined by our dear friend and colleague and fellow neighbor. You remember him and you love him as the beloved Mr. McFeely on the long-running children's television program, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. We know him and we love him as David Newell. And David, of course, we are fully immersed in our holiday season celebration at PR from the Heart. Here's one of these little white ceramic Christmas trees. I remember these growing up, and needless to say, the holiday season is in full swing. Thanksgiving is just around the corner, and then we're heading into Hanukkah and Kwanzaa and Christmas. David, happy holidays to you, and I'm super excited
Thank
for
you.
this bookcast today.
Yes, and we have to be speedy because there's so much in these three books to talk about, but we'll get to it, right?
Yes, that is 100% correct. And of course, where we always like to start off is that here on the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, if you are new to the program, if you are new to our neighborhood, each and every month, David and I, we as a little tip of the cap to David's most wonderful character, that being Mr. McFeely on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, we deliver the newest heartfelt reviews from the newest children's books, from the shining stars in the kid-lit community, right here at PR from the Heart. So kick back, relax. I know that depending upon wherever you are residing in this beautiful country or world of ours, it could be a little bit cool and crisp. So take the time to put on some nice warm tea, some warm apple cider, some hot cocoa, whatever your beverage is of your choosing. And of course, we always like to be able to give a little tip of the cap to our favorite neighbors out in Pittsburgh. Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh. Now, of course, they are the Pittsburgh chapter of the National Non-for-Profit Children's Literacy Organization that provides children's books, literacy tools, and developmental resources to children that come from low-income families in Pittsburgh. Again, they're the Pittsburgh affiliate, the Pittsburgh chapter of Reading is Fundamental. Did you know that last year alone, that Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh actually gave over 100,000 children's books to over 23,000 children in need? So we here at PR from the Heart, especially around the holiday season, are very honored and privileged to be able to give back each and every month as we can do so to Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh. So we encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow shining stars. No donation is too large. No donation is too small. If you feel guided to be able to pledge your support for Reading is Fundamental Pittsburgh, as we like to say, that is where David not only resides and where he hangs his hat, but of course, that's where Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood was filmed for so many years at the WQED studios. So this is our way of giving back to the children of Pittsburgh. We encourage you, if you feel guided to do so, to head on over to rifpittsburgh.org/donate. We've included the link below to make it easier for you, especially around the holidays, being able to give to the less fortunate. Give the gift of literacy. That is the gift that keeps on giving, not only into the holiday season, not only into the forthcoming new year of 2023, but beyond as well too. And if you're having a wonderful mood, if you're feeling that your spirits are lifted, if you're feeling holly and jolly, as the late Burl Ives would say in the popular Christmas classic, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, one of the many ways that you can pledge your support for us here at PR from the Heart and the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast is to subscribe to PR from the Heart's official YouTube channel and to share this very special trolley stop. That is episode number 21 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. And of course, as you know, the trolley, it always travels, and it especially when it's a 3-book bookcast, David, it racks up a lot of mileage. So of course, we're starting off in San Diego and the trolley's already headed on over to Pittsburgh. We are actually going to be headed to the warm, beautiful metropolis of Tampa, Florida. And that is where we find one of our newest shining stars here at PR from the Heart. Such a beautiful children's book written by Ednar, Jacques, and illustrated by Jacques Console, The Moon Knows Lily. Now, David, I'm really excited to be able to share this book, especially on episode number 21 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, because I would say for about the past decade, I've had a really beautiful relationship with the full moon. It didn't always start that way, David. You know, around the time when my awakening began, every time that I would see the moon, I always thought that, like, the wheels would come off, because it has been scientifically proven that during full moons, that's when emotions are heightened. That's when people can be a little bit more anxious and they can be on edge. You even see that the tides can be higher if you live by water, if you live by the Atlantic or the Pacific Ocean, so to speak. But my relationship with the moon changed. And so every single time, I always believe that every time that there's a full moon in the sky, that magic and miracles happen. I always converse with the full moon, and I refer to the full moon as La Luna. So it's so wonderful. It's so wonderful to be able to have conversations with the moon. And in fact, one of my favorite movies growing up when I was a teenager was Man on the Moon with Jim Carrey. He played the late Andy Kaufman, of course, the star of the very popular ABC comedy series Taxi. Thank you very much. And so, there is one of the amazing, the best songs that the band REM has ever put together is the song Man on the Moon, which was again written about the late Andy Kaufman. So there's so many amazing parallels. And through this book, of course, we're introduced to Lily, who's a curious girl, and she's got questions. Now, you know how, David, you obviously had children yourself growing up. Children have lots of questions. You connected with children for many years and decades, assisting Fred on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. And there's always questions. What's this? How is this happening? When is this happening? And whatnot. So really, Lily wants to know, what does the moon know about her? Even to a certain extent, does the moon care about her, so to speak? All three books, by the way, on the November 2022 installment of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. I love how they have a beautiful theme of empowerment. So in honor of National Family Literacy Month, which is what we've been celebrating throughout the month of November and into the end of this month. And of course, with Thanksgiving on the horizon, it's important that we count our blessings in the process. David, this is a perfect way to be able to start off our 3-book bookcast for the month of November 2022. Let's now go inside the pages of The Moon Knows Lily by Ednar Jacques.
Okay, well, as you might imagine, it is a fantasy. And I think this book is really designed for a younger child, probably a preschool, early elementary. But the story begins with Lily saying that the moon follows her all day. And in the morning, when riding the school bus, the moon says hello. And then Lily wonders, does the moon know my deepest thoughts and the deepest secrets? What does it think of me? I'd like to know, she says. And let's see. Oh, she wondered if the moon knows that she likes the color blue and that she likes to sing and play the tambourines and slip and slide and swing. She loves to play. What does the moon know? Can you please tell me? I'd love to know, says Lily. So these words are on one page, and the opposite page has a picture of the moon saying, shh, as if the moon is taking everything in that Lily is doing. Does the moon know I can't swim? Lily has tried and tried to swim. In one illustration, she's hanging onto the ladder of the pool, debating whether to go in and saying, maybe I'll try it once more. Shall I try? I will try it. And the opposite page has a picture of the moon sort of taking this in. Lily trying to convince herself to go in and swim.
And the moon even says there's a little thought bubble. It's really a speaking bubble. And the moon says, you can do it, Lily. So the moon is encouraging her, even though she's feeling some insecurities. Should I go into the pool? Is it too deep? Might I drown? I know growing up, I experienced those sorts of fears, especially when it comes to getting into the water. But the moon was cheering her on, David, which was really reaffirming.
Yeah, and you can see that in the illustrations. You can do it, Lily. Well, Lily continues to ask herself if the moon knows how bad she feels when she's not seen or heard, or does the moon know when she is sad and when she cries herself to sleep? Does the moon know all that, or does the moon know when I'm happy? She asks, and when Lily's mom kisses her on the forehead to say goodnight, does the moon know that? The reader next sees Lily on the porch looking at the moon, saying, "What do you think of me, moon?" She asked the moon, "Do you know you glow?" And do you know that you bring comfort to me at night? And in the morning, too, she's telling this to the moon. And then there's a 2-page illustration of Lily and the moon is whispering, and it knows all about her. I think that's what the moon is saying. Well, Lily, I know all about you. And that's an illustration. Now, the moon knows she likes blue.
Mm-hmm.
And that she likes to sing, and she likes to play the tambourine, and that she likes to dance. And the moon even knows that she can't swim. Did I get my paper in front of the camera there for a moment?
Oh, that's okay. David, by the way, for those who are enjoying our bookcast, David always has some trusted notes to refer to, because whenever we're sharing multiple books here on the bookcast, let's be honest, we only have a certain amount of bandwidth, so to speak. So it's always good. I have some trusted notes to be able to refer to. David has his trusted notes as well too. But I know that we're getting excited talking about the moon knows Lily.
Well, here we go. The moon knows that Lily's feelings get hurt when she's not seen or heard, and she cries herself to sleep. And the moon knows when she is happy when mom kisses her on the forehead before bedtime. And the moon knows all of that. And on the last 2 pages, there is a big illustration showing Lily kissing the moon and says, the moon knows it all. The moon told me so. The moon also said, I love you all the more. And as I was reading the book, I was looking for meaning in Lily's friendship with the moon. And is there some big symbolic meaning behind the moon and the friendship? And I think that the moon is in this book is a symbol of comfort. And the author says in her bio at the end of the book that she hopes the books give children the comfort they need, because children need to know that they are important, seen, heard, and loved. And I think that is what the moon is saying. And the illustrator, Jacques, complements the story with her whimsical and very colorful drawings of the interaction of Lily with the moon. And so that's sort of the overview of it's a short book. And I think there's, again, every time we do these bookcasts, I think when parents are reading the book to the children, you can stop anywhere through it. And, obviously the moon can't talk to you, and it's nice to be able to let them know that it's a fantasy and let's pretend the moon can talk and so forth. And I think that's always helpful to let children know that no one's seeing your inner thoughts. There was a saying, privacy of self, and I think that's a psychological term, that no one can see and hear your inner thoughts. No one but just yourself. You can tell people, but no one can see or hear what you're thinking. And I think that's important to let children know too. The moon doesn't really.
Oh yeah, I think, and this is where the book is also open to interpretation. And as I had mentioned beforehand, children are very curious, right? So they could be very also analytical and say, they could even get scared to a certain extent. Like, does the moon know like every single thing about me? And I really love how both Ednar and Jacques do their part to be able to provide the assurance. They let children know, they remind little ones that the moon is this source of comfort. If you can just kind of envision, David, when you were growing up, when I was growing up, if you have, if you have the blinds open, the curtains open, and you see the moon out at night, that's one of the last visuals that little ones see before they go to bed. And I can just envision that, like, if let's say, you're a mother or a father, and it's been, a little bit of a challenging road to a certain extent for your little one or your family, the little one can easily, and David, I will say this, and I'm very open in communicating this, I have those conversations with the moon. And there has been times I actually feel that the moon has given me guidance. If you listen very closely, I feel that there's always the guidance that you actually receive in the process. But having the moon be a source of hope and comfort, and knowing the fact that you can do whatever it is that you want to do. This also takes me back, I know, to one of my favorite, I'm really not into space movies, but when I saw Apollo 13 with Tom Hanks and Gary Sinise and Kevin Bacon and the guy who was in Twister that passed away. But the moon, it's this almost this like mystical kind of place. Like it seems like it's literally very far away, but especially we just recently had a full moon and a lunar eclipse, and the moon looked literally super close. So it seems like it's so far away, but yet it's very close. And I also think, David, the way in which I interpreted the moon nose lily is that's also a reminder that, let's say if there's a vision that a little one has, or a goal that a little one has, there's times even us as big kids, right? We have our own dreams, desires, goals, and ambitions, and they could seem like they're pie in the sky. They could seem like they're so far away, but the moon is reminding us that they're actually closer than we realize as well too. And I'll say this, David, this is one of the most beautifully illustrated children's books that I've ever seen. The way in which that the moon, normally it kind of like, I always call the moon the silver disco ball in the sky. That's my way of complimenting the moon. But here you see the moon is actually more of like yellowish, so to speak. And there's the illustration where, Lily is actually being held by the moon, and the moon has, a heart for a nose and this big smile. And the moon knows it all. The moon told me so. The moon also said, I love you all the more. So again, it's this, children being able to have a relationship with the moon so that, again, little ones growing up, they can have their fears and insecurities. The moon isn't necessarily something to be afraid of. But you see also, David, as the book progresses, you see the fact that Lily becomes more empowered, right? The moon knows that I like the color blue. The moon knows that I like to sing. As little ones, this is one of the reasons why I really appreciate still to this day what Mr. Rogers and everyone on the neighborhood mention, especially at the end of the program and interspersed in different ways throughout each episode, that you're loved and you're special just the way that you are. Kids' minds are like sponges. They're like the old school tape recorders, so to speak. And if they hear you're not worthy, you're stupid, you're dumb, you're ugly, you're too tall, you're too fat, all it takes is that one, slip of the tongue, so to speak, and they can hold on to that for the rest of their childhood years and maybe even into teenage years and the adult years, so to speak. So it's also, I will say this too, before we shift to our next book, it's also maybe one of the most perfect bedtime stories.
Yes.
Literally, like if let's say that, little one is spending time with grandma and grandpa, right? And they're getting ready and they're tucked in for bed, especially, during the cold fall and soon to be winter months, what would be the perfect book? And so this is why, again, I felt this would be perfect to be able to start off the Bookcast for the trolley, because of course, the trolley doesn't want to be cold, David. San Diego, it's not cold. Pittsburgh, I know it's a little bit warmer, but when we go to the St. Pete, Tampa area, the trolley gets some warmth as well too. But again, coming off the heels of one of the most beautiful full moon and lunar eclipses in recent memory, I'm so glad that we started things off talking about the moon nose lily. I'm just, having a book talking about the moon. Once I saw Ednar's book, I'm so glad that we're having the opportunities to be of assistance to her and get her message out through PR from the heart. So we encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow shining stars, to be able to head on over to Amazon.com. If that is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing, you can purchase your copy of the Moon Nose Lily, one of the best gifts that you could give your little one for the holiday season. Or if you're a big kid who has a wonderful relationship with the silver disco ball in the sky, just like me, you can also leave a 5-star review on Amazon if you feel guided to do so. That's one of the many ways that you can pledge your support for Ednar, to let her know that she is doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and those who love great children's books in the process. And again, a special shout out to Shah Console, who really brought this book to life. So the trolley, David, we're racking up some mileage here, but we're still staying in the southeastern-esque area. So the trolley, again, we always like to keep track of the trolley. The trolley goes from San Diego all the way to Pittsburgh, to St. Petersburg, the Tampa, Florida area, and then we head over to the beautiful, it's almost a country unto itself, but the beautiful city of Montgomery, Alabama. I believe this may be one of the first Alabama children's authors that we've ever had the opportunities to share on the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. And especially, David, the message of diversity is so important because we are all not the same. If we were all the same, it would be a very boring place, so to speak. And especially with, little ones experiencing bullying, it's important that they know that it's okay to be different, to celebrate their differences. So thanks to Dr. K. Renée's children's book, her brand new children's book, Different Us, we're introduced to 4 friends. And they're Malia, Jacob, Sarah, and Samson. And they're at St. Mary's Primary School. They're finishing their final 5th grade year. So that's a very impressionable year for little ones, David, because it's like it's kind of like, 6th grade. I'm going to be I know that like every time when I would, go up another grade and I would be, riding the school bus to school, all the cool kids sat in the back of the bus because they were the older kids, right? So the 8th graders, we even had a thing called bus patrols. And I remember that when I was in 8th grade, what the bus patrol would do is we would go to all of the different classrooms where we would be like, right there is to make sure that all of the kids, all the 7th graders, 6th graders, 5th graders, 4th graders, that everyone was all there, everyone lined up, and then we'd all go on the bus together. So that was my job as a bus patrol growing up. But these kids, they're stepping into their own newer sense and source of empowerment, but they're also experiencing some teasing on the way. The mean kids at school even refer to them as, of all things, the odd squad. So this is such a real treasured classic, and I'm really glad that Dr. K has actually shared this message, especially right now leading into the holiday season, David. So let's dive inside the pages of Different Us by Dr. K. Renée, published by Page Publishing.
So let's see. Well, you gave the intro and talked about the kids. Well, they're I guess the theme of the book is right away, it's being different. That comes up right away. And well, Malia, who's telling the story, that's Malia, right? Malia, that's
Malia, yes.
Malia. She describes herself as mixed chick. You could say mixed chic, but because here's why she does that. Her mom is German, and she said that here in America, that makes her white. And her dad is African-American, and she said that some call him black and some call him African-American. But either way, it never seemed to bother her dad. He's always been proud and a confident man. And Malia said maybe the military made him that way, but she explains that's what made me mixed chick. She has a Yes, did you want to?
And yeah, just wanted to also mention is the fact that the meanest kids at school, they refer to all of her and her friends as the odd squad, and they actually were the ones that referred to her as mixed chicks. So it sounds like, this is again just my own intuitive read from the story, that she could have been offended to a certain extent, but she really saw through the lens of what the meanest kids at school were saying in the process. I really feel that Malia is more empowered than what she knows, but that was just kind of my read that I wanted to be able to mention.
I think I agree with you, but she got teased because of her hair, and she doesn't know what to do with her hair. It's so tightly coiled, and neither does her mom. And her mom, by the way, has long, straight, beautiful hair, according to Malia. And she said she would feel so much better if people simply saw her for who she is and not her hair. Mm-hmm. And she says, Malia Rain Withers. That's her full name. I think Rain is her middle name.
Yep.
That's who I am. And she states that. But her dad told her to keep in mind that those that mind don't matter, and those who matter don't mind, which is that sort of sums up the book in a way. Oh,
that would also be something, to mention one other thing, that would sound like something that Mr. Rogers would say. He would always say, like, what's manageable, what's mentionable is manageable, and what's manageable is mentionable, and what's mentionable is manageable.
Is manageable, right?
So I could just see him saying, children, those that mind don't matter, and those that matter don't mind. So that seems kind of almost like a little Mr. Rogers-ism, so to speak.
Well, then Malia goes on to describe her friends. Jacob, and his name, since his name is Adams, it's Jacob Adams. He was always called the first when they were taking the role. And Jacob was quiet boy, and he would mumble under his breath. And apparently he was so shy he could hardly answer when the roll called. He was the most quiet boy in the odd squad. He wore thick glasses, and Malia said that he was a Caucasian boy with really pale white skin. So right off the bat, there's another person being introduced. Now that's Jacob. Mm-hmm. Now, but behind his quiet demeanor and thick glasses was a musical genius, a classically trained musician, and he taught himself to play guitar. And all of this made him sort of resented in a way, I think. Malia added, not a day would go by that kids at school would make fun of the squad. They always made, not a day would go by. Well, Jacob seemed to get the worst of it because the way he dressed. Now this is Jacob now. No, we've been talking about Jacob, yes. And he was a tall, long and thin, thick glasses and braces on his teeth. What? It seems the quintessential, whatever, quintessential. Can you say that word?
Quintessential.
Quintessential, yes.
Here we go.
A description of someone who's going to be made fun of. And that's true. It happens. Well, the next member of the squad was introduced as Sarah Kennedy, the tallest girl in the 5th grade. And Sarah was a talker. She talked all the time. The teacher always had to tell her to quiet down. You remember some of these kids, it just seems so familiar, right?
I do.
Well, Sarah had a full head of big, thick, curly red hair and a lot of freckles. And although students seemed to enjoy Sarah's sense of humor, they would still make fun of her, calling her Ginger the Giant. Well, but it didn't seem to bother her. She seemed fearless and positive. Well, and the 4th member of the squad was Samson Daly. They called him Sammy. And Sammy was black, a big, tall, and wide boy. And he came from Trinidad, and he wore long dreadlocks. Well, Sammy was the smartest boy in the class and always on the honor roll, and wanted to be a lawyer when he grew up so he could help people. However, with all those qualities, some of the students would tease him because of his weight and very dark skin. And no one ever asked him about his dreadlocks except for the squad, his friends in the squad. Sammy once explained, and this is what's interesting, once explained that dreadlocks held spiritual significance for him and his family. His hair was a symbol of power and strength. That statement by Sammy really impressed Malia, and I really hadn't thought of it that way too. It was interesting about the dreadlocks. Well, the school's a Catholic school, and every day there was a mass. And Malia said you would think the kids would focus on the good things during mass, but no. Some of the kids would hide behind the pews and call rude names to others, and the odd squad got their share of these rude names. It was a mass that the mean kids, it was in the mass that the mean kids would remind Malia of her coiled hair. And Jacob was called the clarinet playing brace face. So this is for an older child. This, I don't think, is for a preschooler. I think you have to be in the intermediate grades to get this. But, well, anyhow, we'll go on. Sarah was made fun of because of being so tall and her red hair and freckles. So far, it was Malia because of her hair, and then Jacob because he wore braces, Sarah because she was tall and had red hair and freckles, and Sammy got teased because of his weight and dreadlocks. Well, there you go. It's all set out. That's why they were being teased. Well, after a few weeks started, they were in school. They went to Sammy's house, as they always did. Every year they would go to Sammy's house and enjoy some food that Sammy's mother would prepare for them. They'd talk about lighthearted things. But this time something different happened. They actually talked about their feelings, which is interesting. And Jacob talked about it really bothered him being called skinny and teased because he had a passion for music and the clarinet. And Sarah's story surprised the group. Never before had Sarah mentioned that she was the tallest girl, and it must have bothered her in some way, but she sort of didn't talk about that. She has freckles, and people didn't see her for who she was. They teased her because she had freckles, and the teasing made her feel that somehow God made a mistake. Now, this book is a little faith-based, but Sammy kept quiet. He was the quiet boy. Over the years, he shared many of his frustrations, but he ignored other people's comments about his weight and his dreadlock struggles. But they all shared their stories this one day, and for the first time, quiet Sammy said, "Think about it, guys. If everyone looked and acted the very same way, this world would be a very boring world to live in." There's the dilemma.
I was channeling my inner Sammy just a few moments ago. So yeah, you're right.
And when you think of it, I guess there's. Well, at any rate, we'll go on. Malia came to realize that day it was her heritage that made her look that way. She had coiled hair and just she couldn't do much with it. Her hair was made that way for a purpose. It didn't have to look like her mom's hair, which was a beautiful long hair. She called it beautiful long hair. But beauty is from within. That's what Malia was thinking about. Beauty is something that has to start from within. From that day forward, the Odd Squad made a choice to see their struggles in a different way. No matter how the kids treated them, they decided they could be bigger people because the God that made them. Now, this is where it gets into a faith-based. God was bigger than us. They all agreed. Bigger than her feelings and bigger than the kids who had no better sense than to tease them. Mm-hmm. And this discussion all came out at one of the meetings at Sammy's house. They started to talk about their feelings, and it was helping them, talking about your feelings. And it was then, after all these discussions and everybody's talking about their feelings about being teased, it was then that Malia says that she became a different me. Yep. After all these realizations that Sammy felt teased, and so did Sarah and Jacob. They all felt teased in some way, and they all talked about it. It was good that they had that session to talk about. And that day, she says, we learned about each other, and we understood everyone's struggles. They sort of, and that was very interesting. And I found it took the fifth grade too. I think the fifth grade is something happens in the fifth grade. The fourth grade, then the fifth grade, you're realizing your feelings. Teasing is coming up. All of these different things come at you, and I think the book was handled it quite well. Now, I
agree.
But I like the last sentence in the book, the very last sentence, after we hear all the teasing that's going on and how they came to the realization to help each other with their struggles. The last sentence says, "Together we became a different us." And I think it was a wonderful story about being teased, and sometimes you can't do a lot about it at that point. Sometimes the Odd Squad, as they call themselves, did something about it, though, in talking about their feelings within that group. And I think in turn that helped. It's always good to talk about your feelings.
Yes, it is.
And it's something that that helped Malia, that's for sure. She realized that she was from those feelings, talking about it, she became a different us.
I'm glad how you mentioned the symbolism there, because, different me, different us. I really feel, David, that in many respects that we're all reflections of one another in some way, shape, or form. So for example, it's long since been said that when you're kinder to yourself, you can be kinder to other people.
Yes.
When you love yourself more, it's easier to express and communicate and share that love with other people. And the arc of this story is really beautiful in so many ways, because it's fifth grade, as I mentioned, can be a very impressionable, emotional journey for a little one, because that's the time when boys are getting crushes on girls, and that can even begin even before fifth grade. But that's when kids are strengthening in their own self-confidence, and especially, as you said, that's when the emotions can kind of where they're really present. Where maybe if you're getting kind of picked on, so to speak, it's not to say it can kind of fall on deaf ears, so to speak. But I even remember, my fifth grade experience. It was very interesting. I actually ended up going to another school for 2 years. I had really good friends when I was in fifth grade, all the way from kindergarten through fifth grade. And I remember when I was at this other school in sixth and seventh grade, there were little ones there that were the sons and daughters of doctors and lawyers and podiatrists. And, I came from a middle-class family on my end of things. My father worked very hard to be able to, and my mother they always put food on the table. They did the best that they could on their end of things. But I kind of felt out of place when I was at this other school, because it kind of seemed very snooty almost. And I remember even, I'm grateful to be able to share this, David. I remember the final night that I was at this school back in the Buffalo area. Of all nights, it was the night of the O.J. Simpson White Bronco 4 chase. And it was there was a school dance that we had, but for whatever reason we called it a social. It wasn't a dance, it was a social, right? But there was this, and this was me in seventh grade, not necessarily in fifth grade, but I remember I really liked this one girl, and I wanted to be able to dance with her. Just again, like when you're in fifth grade, sixth grade, seventh grade, and if you're a guy and you can dance with a girl, it's like that just makes your year kind of thing. And I remember this girl said, her answer went from no to yes to I'll dance with you if we can dance the electric slide. And then before the dance wrapped up, I had heard, and I don't know if it was directly or indirectly, she's like, I don't want to dance with that John. And I remember going to my father and I said, Dad, I want to go home. And home meant that other school, so to speak. So I share this because if you're a fifth grader, sixth grader, seventh grader, I'm sharing from my heart, vulnerably and openly. That was my experience. I can only imagine what, fifth graders, sixth graders, and seventh graders are going through right now, so to speak. But on a lighthearted note, David, my favorite illustration in the book, I love at the very end when the kids it's kind of like they're toasting to their empowerment. It kind of looks like they're drinking and enjoying root beer floats. So if you look at page 17, it looks like there's like a brown colored beverage. So I intuited that as root beer. And then there's this like a whipped topping or ice cream up on top. And I have to mention one other brief story, David, before we head into our final book on the Bookcast is that when I was at Disneyland for my birthday 3 months ago, I said, they have an old school ice cream parlor in the front of Disneyland. And I said, I don't know the last time I had a root beer float. And so I enjoyed a root beer float for my 41st birthday. And boy, was it delicious. So
I was just going to say that was my favorite soda, of root beer, float, whatever you call it. I was a big fan of, and I think they still make it, Barks root beer. They would say, Barks has bites. So I would always love, root beer growing up. But again, this book, no matter if you're Caucasian, if you're African American, if you're mixed, if you're tall, if you're short, if you wear glasses,
I really think that this is a great resource that belongs in every single classroom, because I can only imagine, like, again, if kids are getting picked on, if I'm a teacher, if I'm, a librarian, if I say, okay, kids, you know what we're going to do? We're going to take our copies of Different Us right now, and we're going to show how being different is actually a superpower more so than anything. So we encourage all parents, grandparents, caregivers, educators, especially if your little one is moving through some sort of a challenge or struggle with regards to bullying, or maybe your little one is actually the bullier instead of the bullyee, so to speak. We encourage you to head on over to Amazon.com if that's your preferred online vehicle of choosing, and you can purchase your copy of Different Us. And again, we've included the links below for all the books here on episode number 21 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. One of the many ways that you can pledge your support for Dr. K. Renée is to leave a 5-star review for Different Us on Amazon, by the way, in the process. David, were there any other mentions or things that came to mind that you wanted to share about Different Us?
Oh, I think we've covered them all. But one thing, you mentioned the teachers. I think if teachers know that there's some bullying going on in their classroom, we're not in the classroom, but the kids are, that maybe there could be a special day that the teacher brings out this book and just devotes some time to it. It gets people talking. I think that's the most important. Is just talking about your feelings. It might bring something out. You wonder if the bullies are hearing this too, and maybe it would help them too in some way. I don't know how you do that. There's no miracle cure for bullying, no. But I think talking about it is a beginning. And this book certainly is a conduit to that. It is. And it also brings me back to that. And I remember that this was beautifully shared in the, some people can call it the Mr. Rogers biopic with, Tom Hanks and Matthew Reed's A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood. And, Mr. Rogers, Fred would say, it's good to talk. It's good to say the things that you feel, because again, just like you, one of the other brief things that I'll share about Different Us is that when the kids are gathered around the table and they're spending time, I believe it was at Sammy's house, if I'm not mistaken, it's like they're all around the table and they're sharing their feelings. Now, again, like if only all fifth graders, if only all people, right? And this is why, me as a grown adult man, I'm very blessed to run a men's circle out here in San Diego. And I'm glad to do that because that is a safe and sacred space for men to come in and to share their feelings. Because when we take the time to talk about and share our feelings, there's a greater chance of us holding on to our anger or diving into addiction or things along the lines of that. And again, if we can do our part to be able to help little ones remember that it's okay and it's safe, not only it's okay, it's safe to talk about your feelings, just all of the good things that can offshoot from that. That's right. I am super excited to be able to share with you, David, our final book, the third book on episode number 21 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, because we're going to be going on an incredible journey, David. I remember there was, as a brief aside, the theme for my junior prom. I know I'm kind of like sharing all these wonderful childhood memories of me and teenagers growing up, but there was a movie, I don't know if it was a Disney movie, but I think it was Anastasia. I think it was a Disney movie that came out in like 97 or 98. And there's a beautiful song called, I think, Beautiful Journey or Wonderful Journey, but that was the motto of my junior prom. We got these little shot glasses and they said, junior prom 1990, I think it was 1998, if I'm not mistaken. It was 1998, a beautiful journey, but we're going to be getting ready to go on a wonderful journey right now, David. So again, to refresh, the trolley has gone from San Diego to Pittsburgh to the St. Pete, Tampa area to Montgomery, Alabama. Now we head right back up to the Northeast, just outside of, I believe, the Long Island, New York City area is where you will find a very gifted, very caring, and the man loves to play a mean guitar, Dr. Joe Famularo, and his highly anticipated debut children's book, My IOU Life Ship. Now, Dr. Joe's name may seem familiar for the big kids watching the Bookcast because Dr. Joe actually released the bestseller IOU Life Leadership, which was actually endorsed by Stephen Covey. And Dr. Joe's journey
stepping into the educational field, he always references a lot of nautical references, because again, going through his family lineage, that's something that his family really not only believed in, but that was a part of their daily lives, each and every day in our own ways, just like Dr. Joe's extended family, going back through his bloodline, is that in many ways we're our own sailor, right? We have to trust our own internal compass to move forth, to make decisions, to learn, to trust ourselves. And that's one of the key messages that I really love, which, by the way, David, I think this is the first Lithuanian illustrator that we've had the chance to mention on the Bookcast. Now, I can say this with a smile on my face because I am also part Lithuanian. My last name, Masiulionis, is Lithuanian. So a very, 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 very good job on the illustrations by Vytautas Bikaukis. And I believe, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name correctly, because David, I know that you're like, John, like leading into the Bookcast recording in our green room, the PR from the Heart Green Room, you said, John, I got a feeling this is a Lithuanian last name, but I'm not sure. Can you kind of help me on this? So Vytautas really brought this journey to life. And again, IOU, we're learning how it stands for inward, outward, upward living. So I really love the way in which Dr. Joe communicates the importance of connecting inward, how that reflects outward, and then how we can move upward with our lives, so to speak. So again, being, in that self-development field, that can seem like it can seem kind of convoluted to a certain extent to some people, especially kids. So Dr. Joe simplifies the process and really, kidifies this in such a wonderful way that I think that not only children will enjoy, but it's a nautical story, David. And who doesn't love a wonderful journey to set sail to uncharted waters where the new horizon is just a few steps away?
And those uncharted waters, if you're prepared for them,
yes,
might be a little easier. And that goes back to education. And I think education runs through the whole book of how important it is.
Yes.
For education. And shall we jump right into the
let's dive into the pages of my IOU Life Ship. Let's get ready for this journey.
Well, according to Dr. Joe, everyone has a life ship. And in fact, he begins a book with these sentences, and I'll read them. We are all like a ship that floats on a sea, getting ready for our journey of what our lives can be. And that sort of sums up the book in a way. But the illustration shows a young man or a boy. To me, it was more of a young man getting ready to go on his IOU ship, and he's carrying boxes to that ship, IOU. Well, the ship is a symbol for life, I believe. And is your ship ready? Prepare it well, lift your anchor, and give a heartfelt farewell. There's some nautical references. And the next illustration has a lot of nautical tools. There's a telescope, a compass, a map, and a sextant. And in the next page, the journey begins. The young man says, "A journey you will never forget." And I like this next sentence. Like the first year of school when you learned the alphabet. Your journey really begins with the alphabet, I think. When you start to read and you can take in things for yourself. In a way, that's what the boy, he's taking in, he's prepared himself, he's going out into the world. Well, the story's in verse, but we're not going to go read it in verse, but it helps. The verse reminded me of a sea shanty. The songs that you sing at the sea. Somehow I always associate boats and journeys with the musical background. I don't know why, but this is in verse, and it lends itself to the story, I think. Well, as we read on, the young man waves goodbye to his family standing on the docks, and then goes to explain what IOU means. And the next three pages of illustrations has him pointing to himself. And that is the inside, that's the I. Okay. Next is holding his arms out, and that's the outward.
Mm-hmm.
And next, his pointing up with both arms, and the U is up. That helps us grow. So
just to mention one thing on that thread, I think this is a perfect place where if let's say that you're reading to a group of children, this is a way that there can be some interactive activities.
Yes.
Like, okay, let's all point to the I inside us.
Yes.
Right. And then, this is the little ones remembering that everything begins with me, that I have it within me. And then the outside, how I feel about myself and how I care about myself reflects the O. And then, okay, you got the arms stretched wide. Kids love to do that.
Yep.
Arms stretched wide. And then we're growing. So kids, you're growing by doing this. So again, it can have these little affirmative statements, these exercises, they can almost be some positive reinforcement and some repetition that kids can really enjoy and
I think that's
intended dive into,
so to speak, into it,
so to speak. But yes.
But that's a good point. That I always think when you're reading to a child or to a class or something, that it is good to be able to stop and talk about what to reinforce it, and that's a good point where you can stop. This book really lends itself to interactivity in a way when you read it. Well, so IOU is explained by Dr. Joe, and off the boys, he's the boy or the young man, he sails, feeling scared, but his family says, don't worry. They're on the dock, don't worry, your life is well prepared. And that is interesting because you're well prepared. The education, things that he's learned is well prepared, and he's going off on his life journey prepared. Well, then he wonders, which way do I go? How do I begin? And he decides he will follow his dreams, which is interesting, that are hidden deep inside. There's the I guess, inside. Yes. And the book is illustrated with a swirl of colors. And as I read it, the colors move the story along. I think the colors, for instance, the blue waves and the brown wooden ship and the white cap of the waves, those colors set the story in motion, I think. I agree. And and I could see this as being animated too. I could see it as an animated story. I don't know how it would be an hour, but you could animate it very well. It lends itself to that. And a page or two later comes the author's message, I think. I learned so many things in school, not knowing the reason why, but now I see I need them all. Without them, I couldn't get by. And I read that, I put that purposely because I think, again, it's stressing the importance of education and doing it yourself. You've got to do it yourself. It doesn't magically come. Education is a discipline, I think. And the boy is ready to go on his journey. So, okay. Oh, and I do think the book is for older children, don't you? For more of the elementary.
I honestly feel that little ones even younger than that can probably understand, especially from the illustrations, because like when you see the illustrator again, Vitautas's illustrations, especially the water and the ship. Like again, when especially for young little boys, like being at sea, being a sailor, there's something about that kind of thing as well. So I think that if your little one is a littler one, so to speak, that this maybe might involve you taking the time to read to your little one instead of the little one reading the book by him or herself.
Yes, but I think a 2 or 3 year old is a little too young for it, probably. But you could still do it in your own way. But it would take an interpretation, I think, by the reader. Making
really cool ship and water sounds like.
Yeah, all of that. Yes.
Yeah.
You can tell you read a lot.
And even if you want to put in a little Mike the Tough Little Tugboat, toot toot, you can make a little.
Yeah, Mike was. Some of the viewers may not know, but Mike the Tough Little Tugboat was my favorite book as a child, and you don't see it much on shelves anymore.
And David read it, listened to it on vinyl, and
that's right.
And I believe that was, I'm almost positive, but I think that might have been your Christmas gift last year, if I'm not mistaken, was Mike the Tough Little Tugboat. We managed to find that on eBay for you here at PR From the Heart.
And it's rare. That's a rare record. Well, so here we are. The young man has started off on his journey, and he describes his life journey as how his ship went up and down, but he learned to ride the waves like he did on the playground. And again, it's a flashback to learning. He learned. It's so much is all education. When life gets tough is illustrated on the next page. The wind is blowing and the water is gushing, and he can't control the wind, but he can adjust the sails. And there you go. He's learned this.
Yep.
This is a shout out to getting a good education, learning, taking advantage of your school years. And oh boy, that's all hindsight, but sitting here saying, take advantage of it. When you don't really, I wish everybody would learn, many do, many don't, the advantage of taking advantage of those school years. And in every paragraph was a story of good discussion for the classroom teacher. I put some thoughts down here. Just the concept of the symbols in the story could be a discussion for the teacher. But as the story goes on, suddenly a whale is heading for the ship. What do I do? Will the ship flip over, thought the boy. The whale shouted, "Who is in charge of this tiny ship?" The young man answered, "It's me. I'm in charge of this life's trip." Again, education, learning to steer a boat, to guide a boat. This is all something and the boat is sort of his life's progress, I think. The whale helped him get through the rough waters. And the boy or the young man says, "Thank you, my friend. You gave me such confidence. Now I'm ready to climb." And here's where the up comes in. He turned the sails to the sky, and the ship IOU is ready to fly fast and fly. It's going up. So here's a different perspective. This illustration shows the ship flying in clouds, and the young man says, everything is different up here. It has changed his point of view. Below, he sees the water and the people and realizes that flying above changed his life map, seeing things in a different way. He sees things from above now. It's all, again, it's education, taking in life, seeing things from a different perspective. And here's another one of Dr. Joe's insightful sentences. It's the journey, not the ending, that can make you happy each day.
Just to mention something about that thread, you've seen this Wizard of Oz picture behind me for nearly 2 years, David. And I love it because it says it's not the destination, but it's the journey that matters most. And you've got the Tin Man and the Cowardly Lion and the Scarecrow and Dorothy and Little Toto. And they're at the onset, the beginning of the yellow brick road. And it seems like the Emerald City is far off in the distance. But it's very easy to just focus on getting to the Emerald City, but not enjoy the yellow brick road along the way. And that's, Dr. Joe is conveying that it's important to enjoy whatever it is that you're doing every day, because eventually when you get to that destination, there's a destination after that, and then a destination after that, and then a destination after that. So to really just enjoy the journey, because that's really where the happiness is found. Your fellow neighbors who you meet along the way, the deeper and greater connection to yourself in the process. And then as Dr. Joe continues, is that there's really so much to learn on the journey, and there's even excitement, lo and behold, excitement and fun.
Yeah. Oh, yes. If you don't like what you're doing for a living, boy, that can be. That's another story. At any rate, the young man learned so much on his journey, and he can't wait to sail back and tell his family tell everyone all about it. And the illustration on this page has a red and white striped lighthouse with a yellow beam leading towards home and family. Life's an amazing journey. He says that it begins with the little seeds, Many others will help but grow, but you are the captain, so you take the lead, which I thought was very interesting. This is stressed the importance of doing things for yourself, and that's a very important lesson that again, that a teacher can stop right at that point and talk about it, how important it is. And it goes back to education too. You have to be prepared for that life's journey too, I think.
Agreed.
Well, the last page has the illustration. He's arriving home, and the family is welcoming him. The ship IOU is docking, and the young man says, "So we all have a life ship filled with a special crew. What's your ship called? Mine is the IOU." That's right. Oh, and the last page is like a curtain call, I think. Everyone and everything represented in the book is there in the final scene. The family on the dock, the lighthouse with its yellow beams leading him home, the whale that promised to help him is swimming around, and the port village is directed. And there's an IOU, a big IOU painted on the side of the ship. Yep. He has arrived home. But I was thinking about that yellow ribbon and the captain's hat that he wore. The young man wore a captain's hat with a yellow ribbon on him. And it is entwined throughout the stories. It's sort of interesting. At one point, it's flowing through the port city. And as he is leaving, the point is long. You have to see the illustrations, but the yellow ribbon is intertwined, and while at sea, the yellow ribbon is still on his hat, blowing in the way. In a way, the ribbon seems to be sort of a symbol of his life ship's journey, and it's a connection. As do the yellow beams coming out of the lighthouse. There's colors are used for some symbols, I believe, in the book, and the yellow ribbon seems to represent freedom as well as a connection to his origins, which is the port town. I don't know if that all made sense, but when you read the book, I think there's a significance to the yellow ribbon that weaves through the book. And on the back cover, Dr. Joe wrote, "A child's journey, though through treacherous weather, high winds, and intimidating sea life, on their IOU ship, is using the support and knowledge already inside." In other words, one more time, a child's journey through the treacherous weather, high winds, intimidating seas on their IOU Life Ship is using the support and knowledge already inside. I react to the outward forces, the O, and then the U is seeing life in a whole new way. So inside, I react to outward forces, O, and seeing life in a whole new way can lead to incredible upward excitement, peace, happiness, and fun. That's the U. To sum up, IOU, inward, outward, upward living. I don't know if that all made sense, but I jotted it down because I thought it was very important to get that relationship to the IOU.
Agreed. And there's just a few things before we begin to wind down our episode number 21 here of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. I really love the intentionality behind this book, because Dr. Joe's intention is to create excitement in the minds and hearts and the lives of children, to not only create excitement, but to be able to create peace and happiness and fun. And it's especially when you're a child, even when you're an adult and you're starting something new, as many of our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow shining stars actually know, I am ready in a few short days to actually become a dog dad on my end of things. And I've wanted to have a little furry friend for a long period of time. And there's the part of me that's been saying, can you handle it? It's going to be some responsibility. You're going to have some even more structure and even more focus. You're going to have to, walk your furry friend and, all the different things. And it's just a matter of again, embracing the next steps and knowing the fact that there's going to be a lot of wonderful things along the way. I also love how Dr. Joe conveys how, the storms of life we hear that it's a cliche expression, but especially in the nautical scene, I always remember my favorite movie, Forrest Gump, right? And there is the scene where, Forrest and Lieutenant Dan, their shrimping boat is going through a storm. And, it's a very poignant scene in the film, and they survive, they get through it. And in fact, all the other boats land up getting destroyed, but somehow they survive. And I still remember the scene where then they finally get all the shrimp in the boat. And then, that's David, that's where Bubba Gump Shrimp, that's how Bubba Gump Shrimp came to be, so to speak. So just really the whole, again, the encouraging kids about the journey, that the journey is not something to be feared. The journey is not something that, even if you have the fear, that the excitement is something to connect with more. But even if you're experiencing the fear, as we talked about with Dr. K. Renee's Different Us, as we talked about with the Moon Knows Lily, with Ednar, that if you're feeling insecure, if you're feeling a little anxious or sad, or wondering how things are going to go, you can start a conversation about it. And that's one of the great things about children's books, David, is that they're great. And now I always respectfully use the term from Mr. Rogers. He used the term resource of care. When he was speaking on Capitol Hill in front of, in Congress, Senator John Pastore, he called Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood a resource of care. And I really believe that all children's authors, like Dr. Joe and like Dr. K. Renée, along with Ednar, Jacques, they're all providing their own resources of care for children that can really be great conversation starters. And all of these books, again, they really tie into empowerment. And I think especially as we're heading off into the yonder distance, but the yonder distance is almost here. We've got, Thanksgiving, and we've got, Christmas for those who celebrate Hanukkah and Kwanzaa as well. And sooner than we know it, David, our IOU is going to be 2023, because that represents the numbers of the new year. So as we hear the trolley, that means that it is time to go. I always like, every once in a while, David, especially around the holidays, we wanted to do our part to be able to provide these this being a 3-book bookcast. So we appreciate all of you spending some additional quality time with us here in our neighborhood in the process. David, do you have any final things that you want to share leading into the Thanksgiving holiday? Because I actually have my roasted Brussels sprouts. I can smell goodness from here. I can smell the roasted Brussels sprouts and the green bean casserole, and I've got some chocolate cream pie over there for the both of us to be able to enjoy, David, along with some pumpkin pie as well too. So we got all the Thanksgiving fixins, so to speak, on docket for us. So are there any final words of wisdom that you wanted to share to our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and our fellow shining stars before we celebrate our Thanksgiving?
Well, I think the 3 books lend themselves, the authors to be able to talk about your feelings. And I think of all of what we've learned, or what I've learned to realize, that how important it is to talk about your feelings. And I'll just leave it at that books can be so empowering. They encourage you to. It's the connection that I think books bring between a parent and a child, and what it can bring out. You can stop at any point and start talking about it, and design maybe some time with your child. If you feel the child is feeling lonely or frustrated or bullied or whatever, pick a book that might fit that topic, and you can learn a lot from a child.
You're 100%
talk about feelings. So these 3 books to me were 3 good examples of being able to use a book with a child and encourage talking about your feelings.
100%. 100%. We encourage, again, all of you, or if you already haven't had the opportunities to do so, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course our fellow shining stars, to be able to keep this connection moving forward, to keep the connection flowing, so to speak, if we'll use a nautical reference. If you wish to be able to purchase your copies of The Moon Knows Lily by Ednar, Jacques, and illustrated by Jacques Hansel, Different Us, written by Dr. K. Renee, and of course My IOU Life Ship, written by Dr. Joe Famularo, and again illustrated by Vytautis Bikauskis. That is our newest Lithuanian friend here at PR from the Heart and the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. If Amazon.com is your preferred online vehicle of choosing, you can purchase your copies. We've included all of the links below to make things very easy and simplified for you. Of course, David and I and us here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, we are huge proponents of local libraries and children's and independent bookstores because they're truly the pillars of our community in the process. So you can also head to your local library if they don't have their copies of The Moon Knows Lily, Different Us, or My IOU Life Ship. You can make a suggestion, especially around the holidays leading to the new year, because again, these are wonderful resources of care that can really prepare little ones for their next steps while also enjoying the journey right now. And again, as we hear the trolley, that means that it is time to go. Raise your hand if you have had fun on episode number 21 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. We see the hands from myself, the hands from David, the hands from the little ones on screen, and of course, everyone here is enjoying our beautiful Christmas tree that we have here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast and PR from the Heart. So you know what that means. Mission accomplished and job well done. If this episode of the Bookcast, our Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, has lifted your spirits, if you're saying, John and David, you know what, now I can express my feelings, and I know that my little one or little ones can now with more confidence and ease, and I can feel that my little ones are more empowered as the result of connecting with these 3 brand new, wonderful, heartfelt children's books. We encourage all of you, especially if this message needs to be shared with someone in need. We encourage you, if you haven't had the opportunities to do so, to subscribe to PR from the Heart's official YouTube channel, to share this very special trolley stop that has been episode number 21 of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast on your favorite social media platforms of your choosing. If you are a children's author and you would love for David and I to be able to share your brand new children's book on a forthcoming edition of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, we're already doing our part hard to leave in just a few short months. A couple things to get excited about. We're going to be celebrating the 2-year anniversary of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, and soon, I believe in the United States, in order to be able to legally rent a car, you have to be 25, if I'm not mistaken. So we'll be able to legally rent a car in terms of Neighborly Bookcast episode numbers, so to speak. So we've got a lot to look forward to between the 2-year anniversary edition of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, which is coming in early 2023, and our forthcoming return to the Center for Media Innovation at the beautiful campus of Point Park University in downtown Pittsburgh. Those are a few trolley stops away, but again, we're always looking forward to some wonderful and exciting things that are on the horizon here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. But if you would like for David and I to share and review your brand new heartfelt children's book in a forthcoming edition of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, you know where to connect with us via our official website, prfromtheheart.com, or any of our social media platforms that you now see on screen, Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, all at PR from the Heart. If you are a children's author or a children's illustrator and would love for me to be able to help you in sharing your inspiring story in the release of your brand new children's book, to be a forthcoming edition on our Children's Book Spotlight series, where we interview the top award-winning and best-selling children's and authors and illustrators, ranging from first-time authors all the way to New York Times bestsellers. The program just recently celebrated its 4-year anniversary not that long ago, and we're looking forward to some very special trolley stops in the Children's Book Spotlight series in 2023. So if you would like to be a featured guest on a forthcoming edition of the Children's Book Spotlight series, you know where to connect with us at prfromtheheart.com and any of our social media platforms, all at PR from the Heart, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And of course, as we're doing our part to be able to help children's authors around the world set sail for, I love all these nautical references, David. We're helping children's authors to be able to set sail for 2023. If you're looking to create a game plan and a roadmap for your PR, for the publicity of your brand new children's book, let us see how we can be of service to you. If you're interested in facilitating a featured television interview or featured television interviews, plural, to be able to connect with more parents and grandparents and caregivers and educators, if you would like to be able to facilitate your own book media tour in a city of your choosing, to learn how we can be of service to you at PR from the Heart, we encourage you to schedule your courtesy connection call through our official website, prfromtheheart.com. And again, let us see how we can be of service to you. One more time, once again, all 3 children's books that you now see on screen: The Moon Knows Lily, written by Ednar, Jacques, Different Us by Dr. K. Renée, and My IOU Life Ship by Dr. Joe Famularo. Again, we always want to give a courtesy as well, especially when we've got a fellow, a Polish or a Lithuanian member of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast and PR from the Heart's families, illustrated by Vytautis Biskaukis. I believe I still have that right, David. We encourage you to be able to head on over to the links that we've included in the description below through Amazon.com, if that is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing. Again, also by leaving 5-star reviews if you feel guided to do so for one or all 3 of these wonderful children's books. That's, again, one of the very important ways you can pledge your support for Ednar, for Dr. K, and for Dr. Joe, to let them know that they're doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and those who love great children's books in the process. And of course, there are many more magical trolley stops to come, and we are looking forward to sharing all of those with you, because we're going to be having our Neighborly Reviews Bookcast Christmas special in just after our next trolley stop. It's going to be Christmas, so you'll be seeing a little bit more festivity other than this Christmas tree, but this is already just setting the scene, so to speak, and you will be introduced to the newest furry friend here at PR from the Heart, where some people are already referring to my soon-to-be furry friend as the official mascot of PR from the Heart. So we will see how that goes. As a little tip of the cap, of course, we like to be able to conclude that on each and every edition of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, we give a little tip of the cap to our favorite neighbor, Mr. Rogers. Of course, David spent many years with him, many decades with him on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Of course, in his own private numerology, Fred, Mr. Rogers, always communicated his favorite 3 numbers, which were 1, 4, 3. Somehow, I feel that Fred was able to meet Ponce de Leon. And Ponce de Leon was the explorer who found the Fountain of Youth, because Fred somehow maintained his adult weight of 143 pounds for his entire natural adult life. Go figure. I'd love to be able to meet Ponce de Leon and find that out myself. So that was his way of conveying it in different ways. 1 letter in I, 4 letters in love, 3 letters in you. That was his way of sharing I love you. Of course, we here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, because David, we're very pleased and pleasured and honored to be able to have him join us each and every month here as our co-captain, as another nautical reference here on the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast. Our way of expressing our gratitude to Mr. Rogers and all of you for your support here at the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast is 243. There's 2 letters in we, 4 letters in love, and 3 letters in you. That is our reminder, our message to you, that you are loved, that you are special, that you are whole, you are healthy, you are complete, that you are gifted just the way that you are, that we're reminding you of your inherent worth and your inherent value in the process. And especially around the holiday season, leading into the brand new year, it's so important to be able to remember that. So again, we want to thank all of you for your continued support of PR from the Heart, your continued support for the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, for your continued support of children's authors and illustrators, such as Ednar, such as Dr. K. Renée, and such as Dr. Joe, who again are doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, and educators, and those who love great children's books. And of course, for all of you who are continuing to support local libraries and children's and independent bookstores, truly the pillars of our community. And above all else, we want to thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. So again, for David Newell, for myself, John Masiulionis, thank you for enjoying this magical trolley stop. That is our Thanksgiving special, and we look forward to seeing you next month for our Christmas special as the holiday season celebration continues here at PR from the Heart. Thank you once again for helping us to walk home the children of the world, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Goodbye for now.